Great defeaters, new and old, welcome back to another episode of The Breakdown with your hosts, the magnanimous BaseDaKID, and the sometimes here, Tony, the pugilist boy. But we are the children of the game. Tony, how are you? How was your weekend? Are you happy in life?
I'm somewhat happy in life. I'm actually carrying an injury right now, which is a bit of a pain because when you get those little niggling injuries that pop up and then all of a sudden they just throw your whole aura off center. So that's where I'm at. But other than that, I have to give salute and big props to yourself, sir, on account of holding down the fort while I was absent, both holidaying and enjoying myself, gallivanting, watching live music. So thank you very much for allowing me that respite. I did catch up with some of the show while I was away, and it was. There's been some interesting fights over the past couple of weeks, but there's a massive load of fights that we've got to cover tonight. So let's get cracking on.
Yep. That's fine. So, let's greet
How are
the
you, by
people.
the way?
No, don't worry about me. The people know about me. They spoke to me yesterday. Like they're probably based out at the moment. Big ups to Untraceable. Thank you very much for being in the building. Bigsy Biggs. Big ups to both myself and Tony. And he also says the hardest working member of the undefeated pod. I don't think that can be challenged at this point in time.
That's the
Tyler
truth.
MF Durden, big ups to you. North Bank Bren, salute. He finally got me back in the Discord, so I am in there, people, but my notifications are off. So unless you directly message me, I'm not seeing anything. Philip Answer, big ups to you. Jonah31, Skyliner, the editor, Tariq Mirza, J Lanks, CJ Nico, Clyde Gordon, and Triple R are all in the building thus far. So thank you very much, everyone who's tuned in, and to everyone who will be tuning in as the show goes forward. Now, what I want to do, I'm going to allow you to sort of take the majority of the reins tonight. However, I think we should start with Nakatani and Santiago, or at least one. Yeah, start with that. Let's sort of try to see what we can get through that Japan card, and then we can sort of go to the UK and the US stuff afterwards. But take it away. Give us your thoughts of the fight. I've literally just watched it, so.
Okay, so we had a triple header in Japan this weekend, headlined by Junto Nakatani fighting Alejandro Santiago, the champion. Nakatani going for the third world title at a third weight. Previously a world champion, and now going up to the bantamweight division. He had a height advantage against the champion who won the title from, or did he win it from Nonito Donaire? No,
it was a vacant title.
Okay. So won that title in that fight. So he's got pedigree. But in this fight, he came up against a smooth operator in Junto Nakatani. Nakatani definitely used his tools, his advantages, which were height and length, to his advantages. And he found himself being able to dominate the shorter, stockier Alejandro Santiago. See the knockdown there, throwing punches from distance was Nakatani all night long. Very good jab, the southpaw jab, which would also turn into a southpaw right hook. Very effective against Santiago, and this is the finish off. That right hook thrown with vengeance as Santiago was struggling from the first knockdown in round 9, and then he ended up in a corner, and Nakatani finished him off with a beautiful right hook, left hook combination. But it was the right hook of the 2 punches that really nailed the fight for Nakatani. But as I said, smooth operator, lovely boxer. If you haven't had an opportunity to see the fight, would strongly advise, especially the youngsters at Croy Gas Gym. If you are watching, go see that fight. YouTube has it. Nakatani versus Santiago. Excellent distance control. He was able to dominate and control the pace of the fight, the distance at which the fight was fought. Beautiful boxing skills demonstrated. The full array, the right hook, lead, the uppercuts against a shorter fighter when he was coming in. He was able to literally do what he wanted to do in this fight, and it was a very impressive performance.
Yeah, so I echo the majority of your points. He definitely kept the fight at range. Junto Nakatani is an excellent operator when it comes to keeping his height and not forsaking or giving up his height for the purpose of attacks. Even when he throws like his power punches, he normally is quite able to do it from a safe distance from his opponent. He was moving around the ring sort of sparingly, to be honest. He wasn't really sort of using the full width of the ring like he could be. He pretty much stayed in the pocket, in the firing line for the majority of the fight, and was just using that little small half step back, especially in the first few rounds, to try and offset the way that Alejandro Santiago was actually moving in. He was having to lunge, being a much smaller person. Now, funny enough, Santiago actually had his biggest rounds in. He connected with a big overhand right in the 4th. In the 5th round, he actually was having some success, was able to sort of get in close to Nakatani when Nakatani wasn't able to circle out, and he was actually putting in some decent body work. But you could tell him, even though he was having success, he kept having to basically enter into an unsafe space to do it. And with that taking place, ultimately, what we saw is basically what we saw. He got a bit too comfortable thinking he could collapse the pocket in the 6th round, and then ends up eating a straight backhand, which floors him for the first one. And then after that, you see Nakatani. He doesn't rush, but he applies that little pressure. He throws another backhand, as you said. Then he gets the right left hook combination. He even manages to catch him with another shot as he's falling to the ground. So perfectly legal. But that one obviously did just accumulated and just amassed additional damage for Santiago. And obviously he did attempt to get up, but his corner jumped to the ring post and no, we'll wave it off. And thus far, Junto Nakatani, free-weight world champ, started his career at 104 pounds. Well, technically, I guess it's what is that one? That's minimum weight, I think. So he started off there, and obviously he's moved up the weights now. He got a belt in fly. I think he got a belt in super, and now he's got the bantamweight. So and he's he's one of the tallest guys in those divisions. So he's he's about 5'8". So 118 is not going to be an issue. 122 is not going to be an issue for him as well. He probably, like Inoue, will end up going to 126 at some point, but he is rapidly chasing down Inoue. He does say that is a fight he wants, and I do believe, I may be wrong on this one, but I'm almost certain that he has fought or has got intentions on fighting Takuma Inoue as a way to get Noya into the to get Noya into the ring. I'll beat down your brother, so come take this challenge, come avenge him, kind of thing. So loads of little narratives in there playing out, but Junto Nakatani, very exciting, very well crafted. He's definitely one to watch, and if he can get a couple more fights in the States at some point, that would be brilliant. Not saying he has to. I know that they probably won't appreciate him the way that they should, but just for the additional exposure, or even if someone can bring him over to the UK for a big fight, that would also be lovely. I feel like he needs to be marketed well, but just more activity. If he can get a bit more activity on under his belt, then yeah, he's definitely gonna be like the next guy up in those divisions.
So I've brought up for you, Base, the current bantamweight champions. I mean, what's your thoughts on this lineup? Who would you mentioned Takuma already, who is the WBA champion. How about Emmanuel Rodriguez or Jason Maloney?
Rodriguez is good, but his chin's not amazing. He does wear shots, and he wears them for a little while. The fact the way he was knocked out by Inoue, I think, took a lot of his resistance out of him. So Nakatani sweeps him. Nakatani, in my opinion, destroys Takuma, even though Takuma turned power puncher over the weekend. But and yeah, I also think he destroys Jason Maloney as well. Dealt with the twin. Now come for him second.
Cool, excellent. So you mentioned Takuma, so I guess it's only right that we talk about that was on the very same bill. Takuma Inoue versus how do you say it?
Who? Jerwin and Cajas.
Jerwin and
Cajas.
And Cajas was the J that got me. Yeah, so I've got extensive footage because this is fan footage of this particular fight. And this was a very entertaining world title fight. And certainly it surprised me by the ending what happened, because in this fight, Jerwin, who was the challenger, was certainly, to me, in the fight the entire way and was giving one hell of a showing for himself against the crowd favorite, which was, of course, the hometown favorite of Takuma Inoue. As you can see, Takuma came out with his brother holding his title belt, but literally from the get-go, it seemed like there was a fencing taking place in the early rounds that you can see right now. But eventually, when they started to engage in round 3 or 4, certainly Jerwin seemed to be able to land regularly, and you'll see as the action goes along that Jerwin in the red shorts is able to at least catch Takuma whenever he throws his punches. And this was a case of volume over precision. To me, Takuma was in and out, he's throwing in and out, but Jerwin just, if you look, just seems to want to just work the hands. Anytime Takuma throws, Jerwin always gives some back, and then he's trying to be first. Takuma there with the flash hand speed. But more often than not in this fight, I mean, these highlights are obviously edited, but the fight was pretty much a case of Jerwin throwing punches to the body on a regular basis. I'll just let you get to see a little bit more of the action here. A lot of punches were missing from Takuma, in my estimation. So he did seem to be throwing flash punches, but a lot of them did miss the target. Whereas Jerwin just seemed to be working at a more workmanlike rate and just taking what he could take to the body. As you can see, he's just throwing the hands constantly, consistently, and just hitting the target on a regular basis. Whereas Takuma would seem to wait for his opportunity and then try to blitz Jerwin with a fusillade of punches. 。 . 。  . 。 . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . 。 . . 。 . . . . . 。 . . . . . . Good head movement from Takuma. But the work rate is still coming from Jerwin. And as you can see, he's going to the body. He's saying, well, look, if you get your head's going to be so hard to get a hold of, then I'm just going to take what I can get in the body. Got a lovely shot there, right hook. Caught Takuma flash. Again, Jerwin, you know, starting the action, trying to end the action at the same time. Whereas Takuma definitely looking to launch flurries of attack. Of course, he's there on the ropes. Takuma doesn't want to find himself on the ropes. That's not a good place to try to operate that kind of battle strategy. You know, it always looks like to two judges like somebody has got another fight on the ropes and he's just throwing hands. And again, on the inside, we see Jerwin just throwing hands consistently, constantly. And hitting on a regular basis. So I'm actually going to cut myself short here because I think I've got quite a lot of action still to come. But essentially, this fight ends with a bit of a shock, because what happens is, you know, Takuma is winning the fight on points. Another point that actually is worth mentioning about this fight and the previous fight with Nakatani is that they were both fights that were using what is called open scoring. So effectively, both corners know what the score is after every round. That's a very unusual thing. I like that system. I'm a big fan of it. I know Clyde Gordon's in here. Clyde and I have talked about open scoring for years, because then you don't have the situation of, oh, I didn't know I was behind. No, you know exactly where you're at. And if you're, you know, down 8 rounds to 1, you know what you got to do. You know, you can't be baffled by, oh, I think I'm in this fight. No, it's open scoring. And I'm sure that would lead to better conclusions of fights, because guys wouldn't be leaving it in the bag. So here's the ending. It was a bit of an unusual one, because it's a right hook into the tummy. You're going to see it again here. Boom. Looks fairly innocuous, but it took the stuffing out of Jerwin. There it is. Literally, he threw his punch and then he goes down. And that was all she wrote. Fight was over. And still, the reigning champion, Takuma Inoue. Leave that over to you, Base.
Yeah, I mean, look, ultimately, we won't have to run the footage again, but two things I was shocked about. Number one, that Takuma got a stoppage, because that's not really his bag. He is more the jabber move, the control the ring and win on points guy. But the fact that he actually decided to go and sit in the pocket with Ancajas tells me one of two things. Either he was ultra confident that he could win that battle, or Ancajas wasn't hitting as hard as he usually or he used to. I looked at that, and when I saw him, you know, sitting in that pocket, slipping, riding, I can understand, obviously he's got a dig to the body, because that's a way to kind of, you know, grind him down and wear him up. But he was also taking some very flush shots there as well. Not even like slipping the head, like rolling with the shot. There was some that he was taking flush, and it looked like a lot of them were doing damage. But clearly his game plan was, I'm comfortable enough to stand here. You don't hit hard enough to worry me. Whether he's been hit harder by other people than Jerwin, and he realized that in the ring, possibly. But it was a risky strategy, but he showed another level and another facet of his skills and ability to be able to actually do that, because that's never been his game before. I've never seen a fight from his where he sits in the pocket for like 3 or 4 rounds and just fights on the inside and that's it. And there was times he was backing up Nkajas as well, like, so he wasn't just being sort of pushed around by the guy who is naturally the bigger of the two. He was there in the pocket, and ultimately, those shots to the solar plexus, those shots deep in the gut, delayed reaction, and Cast probably tried to take a breath, and then his whole body seized up on him, went down, couldn't get back up, and even when once the count was over, he was still down on his knees, found it hard to move. So big ups to Kuma, and yeah, that does now, as far as I can see, set up the unification between him and Junto. I mean, yeah, they could ultimately try and go belt collecting for the others, Emmanuel Rodriguez and who was the other person? And Jason Maloney. I mean, yeah, maybe Nakatani could go after Jason Maloney just because it's another easy fight, because it's both top rank as such. And maybe Takuma can try to go after Emmanuel Rodriguez. But I think the two of them know that's the big money fight of the division. So I can see it happening. If not next, definitely by the time we get the New Year's or the Boxing Day card that they usually have. I can definitely see that taking place.
Excuse my laughter. I just seen a comment by Jam Down 187 referring to me as Umalay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I won't put it up, but
Okay, nice one, Jam Down.
Real quickly before we get on to next topic, without going too much into it, Kosei Tanaka was also on the card. He scored a decision win. I can't remember who he was fighting. Bear me a moment. Let me get the name.
Christian Bakasegwa Rangel.
Okay, so let's just call him Christian Rangel then. Yeah, so this one, I was surprised that it actually went the distance, because Kosei Tanaka is more known as he's more of a big puncher than some of the others in those divisions, especially. But as you guys can see there, like, good movement, fluid. He definitely has learned a lot since the loss to Kazuto Ioka. He's a lot more defensively responsible now than he used to be. He doesn't just look for the knockout like he used to. He's a lot more elusive, sets things up, as you can see there. He's a lot more defensively astute now than he used to be. Brilliant there how we had the arm protecting the body and sort of rolling the shots. And yeah, that's pretty much how he fights now. He doesn't really sit down on his punches as much as he used to, but I still felt there would have been enough there to get rid of Hangel. But ultimately another class performance, and he should be on his way back to title contentions fairly soon. But yeah, that's all I really wanted to say regarding that.
I mean, that's his 4th world title in a 4th weight.
Yep.
So, that's an amazing achievement. That only the 3rd Japanese fighter to achieve a feat like that. I think it was Inoue, and I did have the stat up the other day. Ioka, that's right. Who have done that feat. But yeah, you're absolutely right. He's learned from his fight with Ioka, which was a good fight. He pretty much did everything right against Rangel, who was very hard in terms of trying to, set to Tanaka, but Tanaka just had what it took to keep him off. The defensive display was excellent. He was able to slip a lot of punches. His head movement is excellent. Rangel, unfortunately for him, just kept coming straight line, as opposed to trying to find angles to try and change his attack, and that just seemed to just make the job for Tanaka so much easier. And again, if you haven't seen that fight, that's another great fight. Some really good technical boxing, You know, from a technical perspective, everything was thrown beautifully. So yeah, really good performance, very entertaining fight.
Yeah. Right now, to touch on really quickly before we obviously go to, I guess, the British stuff, there was a fight in Denmark. Dina Thorsland defended a unified WBO and IBF belts. I believe those are the. Is it WBO or is she WBC? Yeah, she's WBC and WBO, I believe. But yeah, she defended her belts. Against Mary Romero, who was a last-minute replacement for Serene Satine, who suffered an eye injury, cut over the eye the week or just a few days before the fight, and thus far Mary Romero came in, and as you can see from the footage, it was pretty much an 8-round domination by Dina Thorsland. You know, pretty much systematically broke down and beat up Mary, who is usually a come forward fighter, but in this fight she employed movement and basically had to give up that, you know, that aggressive nature because she was just outworked and outwomaned by by Dina Thorsland, who is most definitely she is the apex predator of the bantamweight division. She's looking for unifications. She wants Nina Hughes. She wants Miya Io Yoshida. You know, she wanted Ebony Bridges when she was a champion. She was ready for that smoke. She wants to be undisputed, and she is a problem and a handful over there in Denmark.
Cool. Yeah, nothing more to add to that one. Very impressed performance by Dina Thorsland.
Okay. All right, let's move over real quick to, there was a card. I can't remember whose card it was. So apology. Huh?
Fight Zone.
Fight Zone, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. So one sec. Yeah, so what was I saying? Tony, sorry, take over for me for a sec.
Yeah. So yeah, there was a card featuring Jay Harris against Butler, whose first name escapes me. I knew very little about it until the last couple of hours when Base highlighted to me that fight took place just prior to the Matchroom card. I did a little bit of research, managed to find a few pictures, but essentially it looks, or as you can see, Butler's on the floor. The fight goes the distance, and Jay Harris becomes the 2-time Commonwealth champion at 2 different weights. I didn't see any of the action. I couldn't even find any of the action. But all I know is, there's a fight between Jay Harris and Butler. They seem to be fairly chirpy friends at the end of the fight. It was obviously, it's a small hall show, which, they tend to be quite friendly affairs anyway. But congratulations to Jay. I'm just gonna think, did I? No. Yeah, I did actually have some data in terms of what it was he'd won, just to clarify.
Who are we talking about?
Jay Harris.
I believe he was the European, and he won the British and Commonwealth again.
Yeah. So it was the second weight that he's now won titles at that level. So a very impressive resume now in terms of what belts he's captured. As I was saying to the people, I haven't actually seen any of the fight, so all I could take was the stills images. Did you? Are you able to comment on the fight?
Yeah,
itself?
I can talk about the fight. I saw it. It was a very fun fight. It was a very enjoyable fight. It played out a little different than I expected, to be honest. I thought that Butler would sort of try and be a bit more of the aggressive guy, and Harris would be the guy that sort of tries to sort of box and move and patrol the periphery. But they actually played polar opposites, whereas Conor Butler used his movement, especially in the first few rounds, and Jay Harris was almost like sort of chasing. But Harris done brilliantly at basically staying close to Butler and employing a lot of big shots to the body. There were times where they traded success in rounds. One moment you would think, oh, Butler's about to get sort of put out, and then next moment he'd come back with his own little flurry that would sort of knock Jay Harris's head back, and then you would kind of just have that sort of ebb and flow in a lot of the rounds. But from sort of round 5, 6 onwards, it was pretty much consistently Butler just moving around and trying to pot shot for I won't say for survival, but that's how it felt. It's like, I'm gonna try it and just throw something kamikaze and hope that it works. But he was just systematically getting walked down, and every time he tried to sort of plant his feet and fight back, that's what Harris wanted. He just stayed in the pocket, arms up, blocking both sides of the head, riding rolling shots on the inside, dig into the body, throwing those big straight punches to Butler, even to a point where I think it was the 10th, it was the 9th or the 10th round, he threw a really big right hand from the side angle of Butler, which really wobbled him and froze it, basically almost like froze his legs. And there was a point it felt like he was about to hold on for dear life. He managed to sort of get away and avoid sort of the next salvo in that, and managed to compose himself enough to sort of get through the round. And then he made, rounds 11 and 12 competitive, but it was still just, it was a really, really good performance by Jay Harris on controlled pressure, controlled aggression, and, sort of breaking down an opponent and sort of, I won't say beating the will out of him, because Butler still wanted to fight, but you could tell he was just in survival mode in the last couple of rounds, and that was all down to Jay Harris's great generalship around the ring. So yeah, if anyone hasn't seen it, I didn't see the rest of the card. It was kind of on here and there, so I can't really comment on how the other fights looked, but that particular fight was very enjoyable. It's just a shame that neither guy is really noted as like a knockout puncher. Otherwise, it could have maybe ended a bit more in an emphatic fashion, but it was a pretty dominant performance, and I did predict that Harris would win, and would win likely by scorecards of like 116, 112, and that is how it played out.
Yeah. So that was the card from Liverpool. Let's move on to the last card of the weekend.
Okay.
Which was the big Matchroom card.
Yeah, so let's do it, because I guess we're going to sort of touch on all of the main fights on there. Let's start from obviously the bottom and work our way up. So Yankee Rivera against Andy Dominguez. This fight played out exactly how I thought it would, in terms that like Rivera's gonna basically be in control. He's gonna, heavy-handed. He's gonna pretty much, throw a lot of shots. He's gonna dominate for large spells, but he's susceptible to getting hit. His defense is extremely leaky, and he does sacrifice defense for offense a lot of the time, and usually won't have his hands where they need to be to block shots. Now, he basically peppered and busted up Dominguez's face from round like 1 all the way up to round I'd say round 8, to the point where Dominguez's eyes, they were both heavily swollen. I was surprised he was able to see clearly out of them. But being as Dominguez is, obviously Mexican, it was a lot of Mexico versus Puerto Rico fights on the card. And yeah, they always work a treat. You could clearly see in the 9th round, Rivera was getting bullish. He was getting sort of very brash, thinking he's about to make the stoppage, he's about to do the stoppage. All of a sudden gets hit with a really big right hand to the I think it was a temple shot, which scrambled his senses. And from there, he got hit with a left, he got hit with another right, and to the point he had to hold on for dear life, and he held on. And as he held, and as he was able to disengage, the referee broke them up. You then saw him. He was just taking shots, bam, bam, center of the ring. He was trying to fire back as well, but he was again keeping his defense open, just trying to gain the offense and try to gain the ring back. It just wasn't working, to the point where you thought he's about to get stopped in his fourth fight. Credit to him, like, the chin held up. He was able to, again, slip, ride and roll. He was able to grab hold and, you know, basically clinch and do whatever he could to survive the round. And then pretty much in the 10th round, he got on his bike for the majority of it and didn't engage. There was a couple shots here and there, but then he started almost like showboating, like moving about. Yeah, you can't catch me. You're not going to get me again. And won the fight. I mean, he won the fight very comfortably, but the scorecards won't tell you the level of danger and problems he was in that 9th round. So it was a really good fight to watch. But again, for me, you can't be an Olympian of his pedigree and not have decent defense. He gets hit way too easily for my liking, for someone to actually make it up the levels. And I just feel that as soon as he gets in, I mean, okay, maybe he's not going to get in there with Bam, because Bam's never going to go back to 112. He's going back up to 115. But someone of that nature, someone that's actually accurate and can crack, and that actually has like proper skills, he's going to be in trouble. He can't die. He's clearly just shown now he can't dine out on the chin, because his chin's just not strong enough to hold up, especially to sort of those small compact guys. So yeah, he's got some work to do. But that being said, he is being fast tracked. So realistically, this isn't the kind of guy he's supposed to be fighting in his 4th fight. So that does go to show the talent levels he does have. But yeah, he's going to have to sort out that defense. Otherwise, he's a car crash waiting to happen. You're muted.
Yeah, so I agree. Nothing more really to add to that. You know, yeah, he looks nice. He does all the flashy stuff. You know, early rounds, he's got the arms out. He's, you know, showboating and giving, you know, showing the head. But as you said, you know, come the later rounds, he nearly came a cropper. So it's going to be a very slippery slope for him from here, if you ask me, because everybody would have seen what happened in those late rounds and realize if you take the action to him early, you could potentially get him out of there.
Yeah. Now let's move on to my favorite fight of the night, which was Jonathan Rodriguez and Vasquez.
Antonio Vargas.
That's it, Antonio Vargas and Jonathan Rodriguez. This to me was my fight of the night. I had actually predicted that Rodriguez would get the victory purely because he had the better momentum. Even though Vasquez had more sort of KOs on the record, I felt like Rodriguez actually had the better power. Now this fight, the first thing you notice is how accurate and how well schooled and well drilled Vargas was. He had a very tight, compact guard. He didn't move excessively. Every foot placement had meaning. Every shot that he threw out basically always landed. He was throwing with Rodriguez for the majority of the fight. It was just a really competent performance, especially in the first couple the first 2 minutes of the first round, especially up until the point where he just kind of goes and has no just a split second of not concentrating, and he just allows Rodriguez to move forward and just plant the biggest right hand on him, like from the end of the first round, that he could throw, and he ends up going over. He gets up, he does get up, he looks a little wobbly, but he's okay at the end of it. The bell goes, and then you say to yourself, okay, Rodriguez has just got himself back into this fight. Second round comes out, Rodriguez has a bit more success, but again, when they start exchanging, the longer reach of Vargas is just really affecting Rodriguez. He's able to get some work off, but the timing of Vargas is just beating him to the punch, and he's starting to bust up his eye. He's starting to sort of take damage, and then as you saw in that clip there, a little combo, little short uppercut on the inside. Rodriguez stumbles over. Eventually, he takes the knee. Then Vargas misses with a shot, and then while he's on the floor, throws another looping left while he's on the floor. Literally, we're talking about 2 seconds after he's already hit the deck. So even if you're saying, I was in the middle of a combination, well, no, you weren't, because at that point he's already down. Like, you've got enough control to stop. And I was saying on my stream that if it was me, obviously Rodriguez has got mad heart, but I would have gone down and just feigned like I couldn't get back up, like he hit me, because then you would have got the DQ win. Because there's no way that it would have just got points off, or they would have scored the knockdown, because it was an illegal shot afterwards when you're already on the floor defenseless, which is obviously illegal. If you can't continue, then that becomes a intentional foul. And yeah, but to his credit, as soon as that punch hit him when he was on the floor, that punch got him back to his feet. It was weird. It's not like, he dropped down and then sort of took a moment. No, that punch is what put him back on his feet. I was like, oh, okay, that was strange. Then in the time, the ref, to me, sort of, it looked a bit odd, where he said, "Oh, you okay? Can you continue?" He's like, "Okay," and he's like, "Yeah, score the knockdown." Then the bell goes, and it's only in the start of the next round when he's like, "All right, take 2 points off." Blah. And I'm like, why wouldn't you have taken the 2 points off at the last time? You say them score the knockdown, but take 2 points off him for each one. But anyway, the right decision was made in the end. But that was pretty much. Then it was pretty much all Vargas. From there, it was Vargas's fight, except for one slight moment in the 4th round where he got caught high on the head, and yeah, he wobbled and was about to get put out. Rodriguez was looking to go to load up for the left and the right, but Vargas managed to jump into his body, and he pinned him up against the ropes and just held on until the ref broke them, and was able to sort of gather himself and get himself back together. At that point, it was pretty much Vargas for the entire rest of the fight, until inexplicably, right at the end of the 8th round, you got Jonathan Rodriguez, who just walks forward with his hands down and gets caught with a short left hook. Bowls him straight over, flat on the ground, hits his head on the canvas. Gets up, he's mad wobbly, but manages to compose himself. Ref says walk over there. He manages to walk over. The bell's gone, luckily, but they take him back to the corner and say, "Yeah, you're done. Like, you've taken way too much damage. You're not going to win this fight now." And his trainer, who's obviously now his father, the guy that adopted him when he came over from Puerto Rico legally, said, "Yeah, I can't see you take any more punishment like that." And it was a correct thing to do. The stoppage was justified, but it was just a brilliant fight. Both guys showed heart. Rodriguez probably, I guess, showed more heart because he took more of a beating, but like, both guys hit the deck, and both guys got severely wobbled, and it showed that even if you're cruising and controlling a fight, you can never switch off, because it happened to both of them in the fight. And it was just a really good fight to watch.
Yeah, I mean, Antonio Vargas himself has been brutally knocked out in the past himself. So, for him to rebuild his career and find himself winning a world title in an eliminator, and putting himself now in an opportunity to fight for a world title again, bantamweight division. So he could potentially up against Takuma Inoue, is the WBA champion that he's put himself in line to face as a mandatory. So yeah, all systems going around the bantamweight division this weekend, and definitely Antonio, as shown, he's got some steel about him. That was a heavy knockdown in the 1st round that he suffered. Beautiful overhand right from Jonathan Rodriguez, but yeah, he came back with a strong vengeance in round 2. And then obviously, he continued to dominate through the next set of rounds with some beautiful boxing skills. Showed that he's got the pedigree to fight at that level. And then obviously got Rodriguez into deep waters so that he was eventually pulled out of the fight. So yeah, good action again. Great fight to watch.
Yeah. I don't want to talk too much about Giasov and Canelo. It was a fight that kind of did bring a bit of the pace down of the card, but look, Shakram Giasov, very technical, very good boxer. He does have a very good punch variety, and he has decent power on all of his shots as well. I think he dropped Canelo in, it was either the third or the fourth round with a really vicious body shot. To the point Canelo spit out his gum shield to try and buy some more time, veteran tactics. But from there, Giasov never really picked up the pace. He still tried to get the knockout, but he never really went for it. I think he was worried about Canelo's power coming back, which, to be fair, you are allowed to do. It was he does have power, even though it's at a weight that he's never fought at before. To what I'm aware of, but yeah, I guess it was a good test for Giasov, and I guess his next thing now will be either like a final eliminator, or maybe he can get a number one shot in the 147 division.
Yeah, interesting finish to that fight, because it was a technical stoppage due to ankle injury.
Well, no, it was a technical decision.
Yeah, technical decision after the ankle injury suffered by Canelo. Canelo's long in the tooth. I mean, he's a guy that I kind of feel like I was young when I first heard his name. So he's definitely been about. I know one of my guys, Ashley Fearfane, fought Cesar Canelo on a Floyd show many years ago. So he's been about, and he's probably at the end of his career now in terms of where he's at. But Giasov did what he had to do, and came out victorious.
All right, now let's talk about the chief support, which was Andy Cruz Gomez against Brian Zamaripa Rodriguez, aka just Brian Zamaripa. I mean, look, all I can really say about this one is it was complete and utter domination from the first round to the 10th round, and I feel like after round two, Zamaripa's whole thing was, all right, I'm not about to stay here and get taken out by you. And you could see every punch that Andy Cruz threw was pushing Zamaripa about the ring, was knocking him off balance, was affecting him like quite visibly. One thing Andy Cruz doesn't maybe have is the killer instinct. He's got good punch selection, he's got good finishing skills, but he's a kind of guy that will try and, when he's got you hurt, he'll sort of flurry you to the finish. Like, he'll beat you down by accumulation, maybe knock you down from a punch that you haven't seen. Although when he was throwing his single shots, they were a lot more effective and looking a lot more damaging than when he was trying to sort of close the show. But in those moments, you quite clearly saw that Zamaripa, all he would do is he'd literally shoot underneath the waistline and grab hold, go underneath the arms, and literally just stand there and wait and hold for the ref to break it up. So yeah, some people could say that maybe Andy should have been able to finish him, but sometimes if a guy doesn't want to go out, then that's basically what happens. They go to survive, they move around. You can't catch them with the shots that you really want to catch them with. But outside of that, it was a pretty dominant performance, punch perfect. Again, he sat in the pocket at times. He dug to the body. He allowed Zamaripa to open up so that he could then counter him. He just did everything except close the show. But yeah, he's shown quite clearly that even at only 3 fights, he's way above this level. And I'm pretty sure that his next fight will be not a final eliminator, but will probably be an eliminator of sorts to get to those titles. Now, he's in the contention for the IBF and the WBA. Chances are, I reckon they'll go that WBA route, because that route leads to Gervonta Davis, and then knowing that he probably won't take the fight, that leads to a vacant title. So Yeah, that's kind of the sort of the way I see it. It was a brilliant performance. It could have been capped off by the KO. Didn't get it, but such is life. What was your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, Andy Cruz definitely, a fighter we've talked extensively about previously, coming from the amateurs, being extremely, extremely efficient with his punch output. He kind of is in that Lomachenko mode of being able to just basically move around and find his shots wherever he wants to find them. He doesn't do the showboating that we get with Ben Whittaker, but I've got no doubt he could do all of that.
No, he
He's
does
very much,
showboat. He doesn't do it the same as Ben, but he showboats. He
yeah,
showboated in this fight. He showboated in the amateurs. He just does it differently.
yeah, yeah. And so because of that, I've been high on him since the Olympics, where he beat Keyshawn Davis in the Olympic final. Keyshawn's been talking smack. I would love to see them get that back on again. I'm definitely up for that all day. If they could get the two of them back together, because Keyshawn is talking, making himself all that. And I would love to see Andy Cruz, who I think would defeat him handily in a rematch. So that would be a good fight. But as far as this fight was concerned, Zamaripa is obviously a seasoned fighter because he kind of knows how to hold and, cling on for dear life. When he needs to, he knew where to put himself so that he could get himself that extra 5 or 6 seconds of space and time to recompose himself after being assaulted viciously by Andy Cruz. So well done to Zamaripa on being able to see his way all the way to the end of the fight. But yeah, you're right. I think Andy Cruz does need to work on turning on the power a little bit more. But he's only 3 fights in, so it's early days, and just because you don't have that initial power doesn't mean to say it won't come, and it doesn't mean to say you have to have it. Shakur Stevenson doesn't have huge power. Pernell Whitaker wasn't a huge puncher in his heyday. We've seen many a champion out there who have got skills at unbelievable rate. Sonny Edwards, not huge punchers, but technically, they don't lose rounds. And that's what you got to consider. Who's going to win rounds against Andy Cruz? Even if he doesn't knock you out, you still got to win rounds. And I'll wait and see. I'll wait and see.
Yeah. All right. Well, look, let's get to the main event and let the people be on their way.
Indeed. So, so it was Edgar Banga and Padraig McCrory. Not the most exciting of fights for somebody who Matchroom are trying to establish as a world title challenger. This isn't the kind of competition that we're expecting to see. And quite frankly, with all due respect to Padraig McCrory, just wasn't supposed to be the kind of opponent that this guy should be fighting at this stage in his career. And effectively was taken out. The KO record had gone for a little while, but it's come back. And you'll see the finish here. He literally had everything his own way through this fight. He didn't need to extend himself any. He was able to hit McCrory at will, utilizing a jab to set his overhand right or his looping right hook. He knew he was catching McCrory regularly with it. McCrory fought bravely, but really didn't have anything on his punches to sort of make Banga have to step back or think, well, you know what, I might be in danger if I don't, be more careful. You know, you see that punch, that, you know, beautiful right hook, but at the same time, his left hand's down by his waist. If he was in danger, your left hand is definitely not going to be down there as he throws the right hook. You know, kind of reminds me of a Jess Willard, Ezard Charles kind of situation where, you know, he who throws the shot first is going to be the winner. And in this situation, Banga was at no danger of getting hurt by McCrory. So he finished it with aplomb. And he goes on now to be in the argument. Now, as of yesterday, everyone was, I believe, under the impression that Matchroom were going to hand Canelo Alvarez, Jaime Munguia. But as of today, I don't know if you've seen the breaking news, but Canelo Alvarez would reportedly prefer to fight Edgar Berlanga in May and then Jaime Munguia in September, despite reports claiming he's already decided on Munguia next. It said that's in fact the Zone who wants Munguia first. No final decision yet. And then follow that up with Eddie Hearn has claimed that he would be willing to make Canelo versus Benavidez if we do manage to do a deal with Canelo, we could do Munguia Berlanga, or if Benavidez wants to come and play, what I wouldn't do to Benavidez is say, you can fight Canelo, but you've got to sign a five-fight deal. I just want to see a great fight, which is good news, because if Eddie is willing to allow Canelo to come in and fight that fight, then I can see no reason why he shouldn't accommodate that. And it's a kind of fight that potentially the people over in Saudi might be interested in, as they might also be interested in the Canelo versus Crawford fight, now that we know Crawford is also a free agent.
All potentials. I mean, I think the Crawford one's going to be the one he puts most on the back burner, because that's the one with the least upside for him. Outside of obviously Crawford being a generational talent, there's so many built-in excuses. I don't think Canelo is that keen to take such a risk that he won't get credit for. More so, I think he would more want to fight Benavidez, because Benavidez style-wise is tailor-made for him. And if he beats him, he gets the necessary plaudits for beating him. But on the other hand, it's a bit more like, yeah, well, I'm not going to get credit for beating up the little guys, quote unquote. And if he beats me, not my career's ruined, but yeah, people are going to look at me different, saying, oh, you let this small guy come to your backyard and you know, and beat the brakes off you. So yeah, it's
just quickly, if I could just answer Philip Answer's question, Berlanga is not the mandatory for Canelo.
No, he's supposedly now in the number 1 position for the WBA, but apparently they did say that fight was a final eliminator. I don't know how true that is, and even if it's a final eliminator, there's still the issue of David Morrell, who holds the regular title. Now, to let everyone know who's here, the WBA works different to the other sanctioning bodies. They do alter this from time to time, but if whoever holds the regular title is the person that has to deal with mandatories. Now, so say for instance, you are the regular and then the mandatory is called, well, it's actually your job to take care of that mandatory unless you're injured or unable to do so. In that case, then the super champ has to assume the responsibility of the mandatory. This is how it used to be. I don't know if they still do it like this, but that's how it's supposed to be. And then if the regular champ successfully defended the belt on 3 occasions, then he can petition to do a consolate what do they call it, oh shoot, the word's gone out of my head. Consolidation. You're able to do a consolidation with the super champ to basically then, you know, to have the choice have the option to become the super champ afterwards. So that's how it's supposed to work. So yeah, even if So Belanga, so obviously they could maybe say, yeah, well, we'll do the Belanga fight because we can do it. Technically, we can have it as a voluntary, or we can maybe disguise it as a mandatory, but it'll be a voluntary test. And because it's Mexico against Puerto Rico, they know it's got a built-in fan base and it will sell, even if people think it's a mismatch. It will sell
I mean,
just for that.
Just to kind of fill in the gaps. Edward Belanga is ranked number 6 by the IBF. He's ranked number 8 by the WBA. He's ranked number 10 by the WBC.
Yeah, but that would have been prior to the weekend.
And 5 by the WBO. Now, there's no way he's leapfrogged Diego Pacheco, who's above him in every ranking, Christian Mbili, who's in every ranking above him, and Jaime Munguia, who's in every ranking above him by the IBF.
Well, there's a very big chance he's leapfrogged them because that hasn't been updated yet.
Yeah,
if he's going the WBA route, chances are he's going to now be put in a very favorable position in their rankings. So that aside, none of that really matters at this point in time. What we're saying is
Padre McCrory was ranked number 3 by the WBA, so he'll definitely take over that spot. Number 2 and number 1 was Eric Bazian, and number 1 is Christian Mbili. That's in the WBA rankings.
Yeah, but Mbili is also going down the WBC route and the IBF. So chances are, like I said, the chances are they'll Edgar Berlanga will get the shot before any of them because he's a bigger name and he has a following behind him. Like Mbili is not really known outside of Canada. Edgar Berlanga's got a whole island behind him as a Puerto Rican, and everyone knows Puerto Rico versus Mexico is the rivalry and sells very well. So he will get leapfrogged into that position. So as I was saying before you did interrupt me, it's likely will be whether they just try and disguise it as a mandatory or not, he'll be able to get a shot just because of that. So yeah, I can see that happening. Whether he's ready for it or not is irrelevant, unfortunately. Like, because they know it will make money, they'll let it happen. It's not the way I would go, and I think he needs to do more. Like, if I was calling for David Benavidez to obviously have to do more, he definitely needs to do more. One of them needs to see Morel, one of them needs to see Mbili. They all basically need to make themselves undeniable, and even one of them needs to see Jaime Munguia. But to be fair, because Jaime's obviously he just beat the last mandatory challenger that Canelo fought in a better fashion, that sort of puts him in a different space. But yeah, they all basically need to do like battle royale. Like, last one basically gets the prize. That's how it should be for me. They all got to fight, and the last one to get knocked off is the one that basically makes himself undeniable. But I understand that doesn't really happen these days as it used to.
Cool. So guys, we've come to the end of the show. Just have a last peek through the chat. Tosin, we also are very interested in Benavidez versus Bivol or Batavia should he decide to go up to 175 because he's got the size to be able to compete there. However, could he take the power of Batavia? I think he could potentially be in a war with Bivol.
Just to say big ups to Jumbo Brown, obviously Star Fox as well. Do you think he can do that to Canelo? No. That's obviously about Berlanga. No, he can't, because Canelo's too astute defensively to get hit with a single shot like that. By the time Berlanga would load up with it, Canelo would have already thrown a counter. But yeah. Last one, Tony, and then let's close off the stream.
Yeah, so just do the old ticker tape.
Go ahead.
So these down below, you can see where you can find me on my socials, YouTube and X. It's Pugilistboy. on Instagram, where pretty much most of my life is lived, is Pugilistic Boy.
And ladies and gentlemen, as you can see there, BaseDaKID, the hardcore casual, that is the YouTube channel. If you're not subscribed, please go over there, subscribe. I'm actually going to be doing a live stream tomorrow. I don't have the time to sort of edit and upload and everything on the video, so I'm going to do a live stream instead to talk about a bunch of stuff, probably between 8 and 9 or somewhere in that region. You can also find me on TwitterX, as I like to call it, B_A_S_E, or just type in BaseDaKID and I'm the first one to show up. BaseDaKID also on Instagram and Threads, but I very rarely post on there these days. So yeah, again, don't really go on there for anything boxing related. For the boxing, go to the YouTube channel or go to the TwitterX. But yeah, with that being said, thank you everyone for watching. Hope you enjoyed. We will be back next week, or at least I definitely will. Tony's sort of we're in negotiations at this point. But yeah, no, thanks very much. And everyone who goes to the you're still muted, go ahead.
Sorry, just one quick reminder. Don't forget, guys, next week, Friday, is coming around very quickly. Francis Ngannou versus Anthony Joshua, the undefeated podcast fight watch along, will be taking place at a remote venue in central London. Details are on the channel. I will make sure that I put the details in the comments on this video. You can secure tickets on Eventbrite. Starts off early because don't forget, Saudi is ahead of us. It's a Friday night, guys. I need to hasten, to tell people, don't think this fight is on a Saturday night. It's not. It's a Friday night fight. We've got several people coming. As I said, all the defeaters crew will be there. So get yourself along, and we should be having some fun Friday night watching what seems to be an amazingly promoted fight. If you haven't seen the promo that dropped this evening, go watch it, bro. This is, I mean, I've never seen anything like this. They've taken it to a different level tonight. What did you think of it, by the way?
Yeah, I thought it was very good. It's not my favorite one thus far, but it's up there. But they just keep getting better and better with it. My favorite one's got to be Fury Usyk, but yeah, it was good, and they showed that they could act a little bit as well. Not so spectacularly, but good enough. Yeah, it was a good one. I'm looking forward to it. And yeah, obviously, thank you for doing the work, because I was literally about to tell them about it prior to you asking to interject. So Tony always, taking his lead as he does, which is always a good thing. We enjoy it and we appreciate that. But ladies and gentlemen, no more waffling from me or Tony. Thank you for watching. Make sure you tune in next week, and make sure to tune into my channel tomorrow. So without further ado, have a great night, and we'll catch you soon.
Salute.